Stephen, thank you very much for pointing out that in my last video, as you said, my plosives were exploding because I had the little microphone, the little Jersnet microphone, too close to my mouth. As you were saying, as everybody knows, you can see that in the back there. There is a clip on the back of these little microphones. Although I'm the only person in the world doing a football podcast, nobody in the football world does podcasts. What's that all about? Everybody will know about these little microphones and how they're supposed to work, except me. Apparently, the thing is, I should fix it to my collar, as you said. I should fix it to the collar by that little clip. But the reason I'm not doing that is because the four chins that I've got, and then they come down to meet the folds of fat coming up on my neck, and they actually end up muffling the microphone, and on top of that, I've got that little hair. As David Baddiel says, your hair doesn't fall off your head when you go as bald as I am. It falls down through your head, comes out your ears, comes out your nose. And in my case, without slashing my windpipe, I can't really shave off this little bit weird bit of hair I've got around the bottom of my neck, which is kind of, it's like a Brillo pad or a steel brush, because I'm so manly, getting scraped across, a wee bourbon biscuit or whatever this microphone represents. So I will try to do it. I'll try it one more time, try and keep the microphone sufficiently close and distant from my mouth, because it is annoying, particularly perturbing when I'm talking about Panathinaikos and Olympiakos and PAOK Salonika and the Parthenon and Piraeus. Why would I be talking about Greek football? That'll become clear just in a wee second or two. We're going to give Greek football a little tiny mention, a couple of mentions actually, if this pod goes according to plan. But yeah, I should be getting it on the collar, mate. I'll try that next time. See, a round collar, I should be wearing a V-neck, And you notice I've got a light blue t-shirt on this time, though. Whereas the last couple of pods I've been doing all about Scotland at the Euros, it's been a dark blue t-shirt I've got on, And it's not the same t-shirt. They actually have two different t-shirts the same size, because it's by a fancy designer called Morrison's Nutmeg. I used to go to Asda George, but now it's Morrison's Nutmeg, so I can afford to get a couple of t-shirts the same colour. I put a lot of effort into these pods. It's visuals. There's little things, maybe the sound might not be right, but the visuals. I mean, you can see behind me, I've got the welcome pack, this season's My Gers welcome pack, and the sign, the Welcome to Ibrox sign you've got is back to front. That is actually my camera. That's so audio and visual, both an absolute nightmare with me. Technical genius. It's just about getting the stuff out there. There's stuff I need to say. I need to get it out there. Don't give me any likes. Don't follow me. It's just, you're just encouraging me. So, I need to point out though, don't I? No, I've got the wee picture there. It was a beautiful presentation box this season. The beautiful image of our gorgeous main stand frontage, Edmondson Drive, Archibald Leach main stand frontage, represented on the front of the presentation pack for My Gers, a welcome pack this season, that wee box I've got behind me. But the Welcome to Ibrox sign, Doogie, who's on Gersnet, he put up on his Twitter page the picture of the Welcome to Ibrox sign. He got inside his little welcome pack where the rope was so badly placed that the sign would only hang upside down, and that's quite representative, isn't it, of the way things are going with Rangers off field, well, on the actual field, big cranes on the actual field up at the Copland Road end. And we're going to chat about that in this, your latest FATEC podcast. What is this? It's not a post-match reaction. It's the post-group stage at the Euros reaction pod. 2 days without football. I'm talking to you on Friday the 28th of June. It's, just gone noon, 1:30 soon, on the banks of the River Nile. Here comes the ball, only half afloat with the Copland Road turnstiles. Go on. I thought it was going to be a podcast all about, how Scotland were doing so well at the Euros, and I was looking forward to get into Glasgow Airport, 15th, 16th of July, to welcome home the lads with the Henri Delaunay Trophy. They were carrying that trophy. It's actually got bigger, the Henri Delaunay Trophy. Euro 2004, you watch that? Euro 2004 when Greece won it, and wee documentary film that's on BBC iPlayer, King Otto, you should watch that. They're bringing the trophy home. Look at that, and then look at when the Henri Delaunay Trophy, when Spain won it 4 years later, and then 4 years again after that. It's a bigger trophy. UEFA gave it steroids, just the way they've given the tournament steroids. But I was planning, the only trip I had planned was down to Glasgow Airport, 15th, 16th of July, with a Scotland team coming home, bringing Henri home, as we're going to do. I now cancelled that, obviously, but we'll all be heading down to Southampton docks. Is it the 21st of July? To welcome home the ship from Asia that's bringing the rest of the Copland Road stand to Ibrox. You know, it's a blue, blue sea of Ibrox. It's down at Southampton just now, actually, but we'll get it up the road. And did you know, I pointed out in one of my previous little pods I've been doing on this wee channel of mine, all about the Euros. I pointed out stuff about the flags, the difference between the England flags or the St George's crosses you see hung at England games and all the saltires you see hung at Scotland games, and the different things that are written on them. Now, the English are quite happy to put their club, the club that they support. No, it's Manchester City, Birmingham City, Wolverhampton Wanderers, Plymouth Argyle, on all the flags, and the Scotland flags are saltires. We don't do that. You know, it's maybe a pub is mentioned, maybe a town, but it's never a football club on these. There's no like Hearts, Hibs, Rangers, Celtic saltires getting hung. And that's a wee insight into the difference in the way we think, maybe how internecine we are. But I did know one thing that always pisses me off is if you see a Union Jack at an England game. How dare they try to claim that they are Britain? You know, it's nothing to do with them. And I saw a Union Jack, I mentioned this in a previous pod, I saw a Union Jack at one of the games, and I was just about to go on this rant about how we're going back to the 70s, where they think they can fly Union Jacks, and they think they're singing, it's bad enough that they sing God Save the King. That's not their national anthem, it's everybody's national anthem. They should be singing Jerusalem or something like that. And then the camera went back to that part of the ground, and the Union Jack said Rangers on it, a big Rangers crest on it. But I think it also said, if I remember correctly, I might be imagining this, but I'm sure it said Southampton across the St George's Cross, the bar, the horizontal bar of the Union Jack. It said Southampton across it, and it's a Union Jack. Colloquially, it's actually the Union flag, but people call it the Union Jack because, like most or a lot of national flags, yes, I have been on Twitter recently. A lot of good stuff on there. They come from old naval signs, old naval ensigns, naval flags. And that's the Union Jack. It was a jack, no? It was raised on ships to say we're from Britain. That was where it first developed, that flag. And I think it's really quite coincidental, isn't it? That no, the Bears got their stamp. We're the only team that flies a Union Jack. And the Southampton one. Southampton is where the stuff is going to be arriving to complete the Copland Road stand. We will talk about that, but the coincidences, I thought that was quite a coincidence. The whole naval thing, a ship, Southampton, Rangers, the Copland Road, the materials required to complete the work that's going on in the Copland Road stand will arrive there on the 21st of July. It's like coincidences. With the Euros, there's a film on just now, as I say, on iPlayer, King Otto, that's OTTO. King Otto, AUTO, that's a different film, and I can, if you DM me, I can let you know what channel that's on. But there's a film on just now, it's all about Greece winning the European Championships in 2004, 20 years ago, under the German manager Otto Rehhagel. You know, they don't mention it. The thing that disappointed me about that film, it was a good wee film, but the thing that disappointed me was they didn't do anything about the way he used to blow, he used to whistle by sticking his knuckle and his really quite mental. But we love what coincidences. I mean, for example, every year ending, I think they give us hope. Football coincidence every year ending. Spurs only win stuff in a year ending in one, don't they? A year ending in one. Well, no, in 1971 they didn't. Hearts only get to the Scottish Cup final in years ending in six. You know, no, in 2016 they didn't. I was there. Hearts won the 2016 Scottish Cup final, and Celtic don't win the league in years ending in five. You know, so if they're going for 55, 20, 24, 20, 25. Let's see, we mucked it up in 2015, but let's see if we can keep that one going. I think that's what it's a wee bits of hope. I find them interesting as well. And I remember, didn't he mention the fact in that King Otto documentary that Otto Rehhagel, you got the Konig Otto, the King Otto thing was first applied to him by Werder Bremen fans. He went to Werder Bremen, fairly provincial club. No, it's a port city, Bremen and that kind of thing. But the big rivalry, Hamburg won the European Cup, won the Cup Winners' Cup, lost a UEFA Cup final to Gothenburg in 1982. So they were big on Europe. But Otto came there and they won a couple of Bundesligas with Werder Bremen, and then he won on the European Cup Winners' Cup, and they won the final in Benfica's Stadium of Light in Lisbon. They beat Arsene Wenger's Monaco 2-0. Fantastic. That was him, King Otto. He's brought a European trophy to Werder Bremen. That was our first ever European final. Didn't get to another one until the season after we beat them on the way to Manchester. Well, the following season, one thing at a time, Alec. One thing at a time. So Otto Rehhagel at Kaiserslautern, Bayern Munich, and then he ends up, this is like 10 years later, he ends up at Greece, the Greece national team, who'd never done anything ever. It's a good lesson for Scotland. Everything to do with the Euro seems to be a lesson for Scotland and how we're totally underachieving. But they win the thing. They end up winning the European Championships. I remember watching it. It just seems like yesterday to an old man like me. It was an absolutely phenomenal thing to watch because it gave hope to nations like Scotland, and we still haven't learned to cash on it. We actually had a German manager at the same time. We had a German manager who'd won the Euros before with Germany. I was there when he won the Euros. I was there at Wembley, the final in '96. He was 2-0 into the Faroes after 13 minutes in top tier in his first competitive game in charge. And that remains, even though we drew that game 2 weeks, that pretty much remains the most humiliating moment for me as a Scotland supporter, despite everything they were trying this summer. But Otto Rehhagel, he gets Greece. They beat Portugal in Porto in the first game. They end up beating the holders, France, in the semi-final. They beat the quarter-final. They beat the kind of second favourites, had a fiver on the Czech Republic because they were so good to win that tournament. They beat them in the semi-final, and then they beat Portugal again, the hosts again, but this time in the final they beat them in the Stadium of Light, Lisbon. It'd been completely done up for Euro 2004, so it had been moved slightly to the side. It wasn't the exact same footprint, but it was pretty much the same site. It was still the Stadium of Light. You know, the Stadium Rangers played in Estádio da Luz, where we played last season and back in '55 season against Benfica. So he wins a European trophy for Werder Bremen at the Stadium of Light, Lisbon, Otto Rehhagel, and then he manages Portugal. He gets into international football. He manages Greece to beat Portugal in the final on the Stadium of Light, Lisbon. And the goal is scored by Angelos Haristeas. That's enough of a coincidence. Just he wins his 2 major international trophies for club and for a country in the same ground, in the exact same ground. But Angelos Haristeas, who scores the only goal of that game, excuse my pronunciation of his name, the final for Greece, he's a Werder Bremen player at the time. His club at the time was Werder Bremen. This is like a decade after Otto Rehhagel's left Werder Bremen. It's going to know how to do with Otto. It's just an amazing coincidence. I thought it was a really amazing coincidence, but nobody else in my house seemed to think, that the explanation you've just got that you're finding absolutely riveting and it's making you hit subscribe buttons and like buttons and things like that. Don't, because I just get told, according to somebody in my house, that just sounded like a whole lot of a football man scored a football goal to win a football cup, and then another football man scored a football goal to win a football cup somewhere in some sort of football stadium. I think we cling on to coincidences because as football fans, we feel so helpless. That old fever pitch thing. We feel so helpless as football fans. We need to find some way of thinking things are going to happen. If you've watched any of my previous pods on the European Championships this summer, I was doing the whole John McGinn just needs one more goal to catch Ali McCoist in 5th place in the all-time top Scotland scorers, and he's played Switzerland in the second game of these Euros after we get humiliated by the hosts in the previous game. Euro 96, Ali McCoist was the last man to score a winner for Scotland at major finals in the previous game. It was against Switzerland at Villa Park. In the previous games, we'd been embarrassed by the hosts, which was England at Wembley. Gaza doing the keepy uppies to score the goal there. We missed a penalty and stuff. And although John McGinn couldn't equal Ali's record at Villa Park, because we're playing Switzerland in Cologne in this Euros, well, John McGinn's employed at Villa Park, he plays for Aston Villa. Great coincidence, it's bound to happen. Didn't happen, we only drew with the Swiss. Had a whole thing going on about Steve Clarke, the 3 Tons, North Ayrshire. If you don't know the 3 Tons, North Ayrshire, Ardrossan, Salkett, Stevenson. I'm from Ardrossan. I went to the same primary school as Billy Gilmour, just a few years apart. The SFA released that Our Billy documentary, which is on YouTube. I would advise you watch that, and it was really getting to me because it was just all stuff about my hometown, and it footage of showing you his dad, Billy Gilmour's dad, played for Ardrossan Winton Rovers. My first season ticket for a football team was Ardrossan Winton Rovers. I was born in the street, Winton Park, that street. And the thing that Salkett's a neighbouring town. My mum's from Salkett. She knows Steve Clarke's mum, and Steve Clarke's from Salkett's. And the thing that Salkett's have always had over us, our big rivals, Salkett's Victor, they won the Scottish Junior Cup in 1925. The Winton have never got past the semi-finals of the Scottish Junior Cup. Cup. And I thought, how amazing would it be? It's just bound to be that 99 years later, Steve Clarke, a guy for Celtic, is going to put on Billy Gilmour, and he's going to get Scotland into their first ever second round of a tournament, of a finals tournament, and that'll be something that a Dawson can hold. Or that beats winning the Junior Cup. That's a national scale achievement for Scotland. That was good. It didn't happen. Nothing. We're out. We're home. Scotland are back. And even the Neckar Stadium, Stuttgart. When we're going into that game against Hungary, did a massive preview pod for that. It's going to be. It was nearly as long as this one's going to be. I'm going to talk about Rangers. Don't worry about it. There was a whole thing about the Neckar Stadium, Stuttgart. For me, it's the place that Rangers and Celtic both lost by 3-2. This is where Scotland were playing on Sunday against Hungary. The Neckar Stadium in Stuttgart, the Daimler-Benz Stadium. It's just called the Stuttgart Stadium for this tournament. It's been called the Adolf Hitler Stadium in its long, storied past. But that was where Rangers and Celtic both lost by 3-2 against VfB Stuttgart on their way to UEFA Cup finals. 2003 it was Celtic, 2008 it was us. And on those seasons up to that final that we got to, we both lost 3-2 at Stuttgart. Now Rangers have played in the Neckar Stadium Stuttgart 3 times in the Champions League. Haven't won there. But I just felt as if Rangers and Celtic both got to finals in Seville. We both got to the final of that competition in Seville. No, in 2008 we didn't, but it's the same competition, the Europa League, and they both lost in Seville, and then Scotland team lost in Seville in La Cartuja on the way to these European Championships in the qualifiers, and then Rangers won in Seville, first Scottish team ever not to lose in Seville. We won in Seville. Scotland lost in Seville in 1982 in the World Cup. Is it the Rangers were the first Scottish team to win in Seville when we beat Real Betis this season in the season just passed in the Europa League, and I thought that was a massive achievement. Symbolically, it was going to mean that Rangers and Celtic, although not united, we're never going to be united. You need to have the hatred there, to forge the white hot heat of old firm hatred can forge players that are good enough to do things at an international level. It would give us a neutral ground, a much needed neutral ground to stop all this silly politicking that's going on about following Scotland. If Scotland just qualify for the second stages, the whole country will just go sod club football for like 2 seconds. Here we go. And I thought that was so appropriate at the stadium where Germany had played their first post-war fixture. After the Second World War, they played there in 1950, or West Germany as they were colloquially known then. They played Switzerland. That was the first. The Germans were banned for the 1950 World Cup because something they'd been involved in politics-wise, which we border disputes they'd been involved in, had managed to get the 1942 and 1946 World Cups cancelled, so they didn't bother letting them in. Just real spite, real small-minded, it's so petty. Then they let the Germans into the 1950 World Cup, which was the first one after the Second World War, and the Germans, weren't really allowed to show themselves as a nation until November 1950. They get to play their first football match post-war, and it's against Switzerland in the Neckar Stadium, Stuttgart. And then 1990, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Germans get to play their first reunified. It was a bad term because the Deutscher Fußballbund, excuse me, the West German Football Association really just absorbed the East German Football Association, just as the German Federal Republic just absorbed East Germany. There was no kind of unification going on. They just sucked. We'll take over, but the first unified Germany game after the fall of the Berlin Wall officially was in December 1990, where they beat Switzerland 4-0 at the Neckar Stadium. The first goal of unified Germany scored by Rudi Völler, who'd scored the last goal for West Germany in a European Championships qualifier, I think, the previous month in Luxembourg, and Rudi Völler scored both times he came to Ibrox with Marseille. Coincidences, it gets to a point where you realise I'm just using them as a desperate way to try and work out how Scotland are going to do well, how Rangers are going to do well, and they've failed me every single time. And by the end of this season, and the season for me did end last Sunday with Scotland getting papped out those European Championships by Hungary, I realised that the only real coincidence, the major coincidence of 2024 so far for me is that Scotland and Rangers have failed in almost identical ways. Scotland really just a micro version of what Rangers did across the whole of the last domestic season just ended. It started absolutely humiliating fashion, and in both cases it was preempted. It was signalled. Talking about coincidences, talking about symbolism, by friendlies. Rangers losing to Olympiacos. Congratulations, Olympiacos then went on and became the first Greek club side ever to win an international trophy when they won this season's Conference League. But they changed managers 2 times between then and playing us in that friendly back in July, August of 2023. Beat us 3-1, and that didn't flatter them at all. We don't look good. We'd also beaten Hamburg, who are a second-tier German club now, as we know. Unfortunately, we beat them by 2-1, 2-1, going on 2 each a few days earlier, and I was saying the friendly, we don't look good. But it's only friendlies. It'll be okay once the season starts. They're just getting their fitness back, and then it wasn't. It was an absolute disaster. We got beaten 1-0 Kilmarnock on the first day of the season. We lose 1-0 that terrible Old Firm game to Celtic at Ibrox, when so much was expected of us and so little was expected of Celtic, and then we ended up losing 3-1 at home to Aberdeen. We get horsed 5-1 in the Champions League playoffs by PSV Eindhoven. That's it. It's all over for Michael Beale after that Aberdeen defeat. He's gone. Scotland, after the Scottish Cup final 2 weeks later, 13 days later, I'm back at Hampden for a friendly against Finland, which is 7 days ahead of us kicking off in Munich, kicking off the European Championships in Munich against the hosts. A wee warm-up, we'd played Gibraltar a few days earlier in Faro, a Euro 2004 stadium in which Greece played. And we beat them 2-0, and it was terrible. It was very unconvincing. Well, then 2-0 up against the Finns, and the game ends 2 each. It's only friendlies, it's only warm-ups. It wasn't very convincing at all. And then Scotland start the European Championships with a total humiliation. Absolutely gubbed by the Germans, by the hosts. And it gets a bit better in the middle. The 1-1 draw with Switzerland, just as Rangers got Philippe Clement in the middle of October, and solidified, won the League Cup. Brilliant result against Real Betis, historic result for Rangers against Real Betis in the Europa League in Spain. And then, although we lost the New Year game, we kind of solidified home win against Kilmarnock just before the winter break. And February, we get ourselves top of the league. We're looking really good. Scotland, 1-1 with Switzerland, in the middle portion, looking really good. And there's so much, and it's slowly the wheels come off it for Rangers, and we end up losing. We don't win the league, and then we go to that Scottish Cup final, just win a second domestic trophy for the first time post-liquidation, just to show that we're back in some sort of sense, give us a bit more momentum, and we lose that to a final minute goal, a goal in the final minute to Celtic. And with Scotland, it's like, right, let's go out there, we need to do it. The wheels slightly come off by celebrating a 1-1 draw with Switzerland. But if we can beat Hungary, and it's not happening, it's not working, you can see it's not working, think, well, at least just get the draw. We can't seem to attack without letting them get in behind us. At least just get the draw, and that way we'll get 2 points. And teams might, at that point in time, last Sunday, teams could potentially have progressed through the last 16 on 2 points. And with the very last kick of the ball, like Hungary score in the 100th minute, the very last kick of the ball, Hungary score the only goal of the game, and it finishes exactly the same way for Scotland as it did for Rangers. And after that, that's the only coincidence I've got, and the only joy, it's not even joy, it's just symbolism. It's just symbolism, and the BBC presentation team, the anchor, Gary Lineker, Shearer, they're sitting there, Wayne Rooney, what's he all about? He looks like Desperate Dan. They're sitting there in a beautiful studio in a beautiful part of Berlin. It's easy to get a flight to Berlin. I've been to Berlin 3 times. You can fly direct from Glasgow. We've all been to Berlin over the last few years. We've all been to that part, and I'm thinking, why is Paritzer Platz on the east side, the top of Unter den Linden, why is it so quiet? And they'd shut it off, actually, but I thought was pretty horrendous, shutting off the Berlin Wall, where they're putting a new Berlin Wall up, a temporary one at the Brandenburg Gate, because it's there in the background. The beautiful thing about the BBC main studio where they're presenting from during these Euros is that way it faces straight on to the Brandenburg Gate, the Brandenburger Tor. Tor is the German word for gate, and it's the German word for goal. If you've read Uli Hess-Lichtenberger's Tor, a beautiful English language explanation of German football, there's been a few editions of it, you know that Tor is the German word for goal, and it actually translates directly as gate. I don't know, it's because I think goal posts, the 2 posts and the crossbar, it looks like kind of gateway, and you put the ball in there. Is that the gate that it's shutting? I don't know. He probably explains it. I've forgotten that bit in the book, but it's Tor means gate in German, but that's their word for goal. Tor. And they're standing with the Brandenburg Gate, and I could see, and famously the Brandenburg Gate, it's got the quadriga on top of that sculpture, on top of it, which is victory, and a chariot being pulled by these horses. It's a quadriga. All sorts of history behind that itself. It's faced both ways. It's been nicked by Napoleon and then brought back, stuff like that. It's really historic, and that was designed by Johann Gottfried Shadow. I've not looked that up or written it down or anything like that. I know that off the top of my head because I've been to Berlin 3 times. I've just Johann Gottfried, is it Shadow or Shadow? My writing's terrible. Anyway, he designed that back in the late 1700s, and it's Victory. And I'm thinking, well, Scotland have got put out. Why is that? Why is Victory face me symbolically? Doesn't it make sense? And then you see what the Germans have done. They've built, there must be a fan park on it. Was something Marktplatz, the other side of the Brandenburg Gate, the side you can't see from the BBC presentation of the Euros. It's got a big, huge goalposts erected. It's a pun. It's a visual pun. The Germans have put It looks like, if you're Scottish, you just think it's like drainage pipes that have been erected. It's a bad bit of plumbing, but it's actually a big white goalpost. Look at it next time you see it. That have been erected over the Brandenburg Gate. Brandenburger Tor. You know, that all makes sense now. Visual joke. I'm assuming it's some sort of fan park they've got on that side. The last time I was in Berlin, on that side, the top of 17th June Strasse, they had the techno porcupine. You know, a big, massive metal porcupine. It was absolutely brilliant, all kind of brass. It was all done up, brown, shiny, right in the middle of this fantastically iconic part of Europe, never mind Berlin. And they had the decks in there, the DJs were in there, and it was a kind of techno thing. I wasn't there for the rave, the kind of Summer of Love type thing, but it was great. You know, went in there, enjoyed some funky beats. I think that's proper techno speak. And they must have a fan park or something going on there, and they've got these big goals up there, and I thought that's what it is. The goals are the other side of victory. Victory is the other side of the goals I'm hoping my country and my club achieve. The symbolism is all making sense, and I switch on the television, I turn over the channels to try and get away from the football, to try and forget the pain that only 8 teams went home after that first round of the Euros, all those group games. We'll just to get rid of 8 teams out of the 24, and Scotland are one of them. Okay. Poland, population 30 odd million. Czech Republic, population 10 million, twice that of Scotland. They've both got fantastic football histories at international level anyway. So it's no shame to be going home with them. But in Croatia, the team that I'm always holding up as an example of why Scotland's small population of 5.5 million should be no burden, no limit to his achieving at international football. Well, they're away home as well. The 3 World Cup semi-finals, or 1 World Cup final didn't count at the Euros. They're away home as well, so it's maybe no great shame. But Albania are away home, and they've got a smaller population in Scotland. But they go home with their heads held. I mean, they didn't get horsed by anybody. They gave everybody they played a major fright. And their supporters certainly out-atmosphered ours. They were absolutely unbelievable, the Albanians. Their games were all riveting for the crowd as much as anything else. They would have scored the fastest goal of the Euros against Italy, against the holders in their very first game. It's only the second Euros they've been to. I don't know. My kind of reasonable... It's all about Scotland just qualifying. You go 23 years without a tournament. Doesn't really matter. Well, we played Hungary, who've qualified for 3 straight Euros, and they stayed at Stuttgart for the last 2 games. Things like that will give them just enough of an edge to beat a team like Scotland, who are just getting used to qualifying for Euros again. And then there's Georgia, who finished 4th almost a year ago, a year and 3 days ago or something like that. I was at Hampden watching Scotland beating Georgia in a game that was delayed for an hour and a half because of unbelievable rain. But Georgia finished 4th in that group, but through the 3rd division Conference League, the same way Nations League, the way that Scotland get into the Euros in 2020, they got there, and they're through. They're through, and they played absolutely brilliantly. Even when they lost to Turkey, it was a sensational game. They just went for it. They really went for it, and although they've got one major star in Kvaratskhelia, I think all in all, the general quality they've got is no better than Scotland's, as we proved by beating them at home and drawing with them away from home in those Euros, the European qualifying group. But they're there. They've got a smaller population in Scotland. That's their first ever Euros. They finished 4th in our qualifying group, and they're in the last 16, and everybody loves them. So there's no getting away from it. And I'm watching politicians, the general election. You're flicking through the channels just now, and they're talking. We just want to know about how to get on with life. We want to know about how, get the energy bills down, get the NHS working again, schools, get child poverty, food banks. That's a disgrace. Shouldn't it be happening? Just how are we going to go on with life? But they don't want to talk about that because they know they're guilty. They want to do non sequiturs. They hit you with non sequiturs. What about these folk in boats arriving? What about immigration? What about making Britain great again? And what about the EU? Guys, it's folk like Nigel Farage who just He's a known Nazi, and just it's these non sequiturs that that's got nothing to do with anything. But you're kind of forced to answer it because idiots need an answer to these questions before they'll let you get on with real life. And I'm thinking, well, at least I've got the football to get back to, and then Rangers. At least I know I've got my season ticket paid for. My Gers, I've got that paid for. I'm just going to go. I only do Ibrox and Hampden. I say that every time I'm on Gersnet, just so people know that I'm not trying to come across as some fat Uber fan who goes and watches Rangers home and away every week. I've not done the away games for years. I've not missed a Rangers game at Hampden for years, for 20 odd years, and I miss one kind of competitive game at Ibrox every season because somebody dies or somebody needs picked up at the airport. I've got an infection that needs seen to. Something like that happens, once a season. But I usually go to every competitive Rangers game at Ibrox and Hampden, and Rangers hit me with the non sequitur. It's like we can't even think that. You can't get on with your Rangers life. You can't just get on with general football life, accepting losses, sucking them into your system and going, I'm going to be back at Ibrox next season anyway. You might not be, because we don't know that Ibrox is going to be ready. And that is quite something. I think about the little break I had between Rangers last season and Scotland in the summer. Was the one weekend. I mean, one of the coincidences I was looking at was when I get married. It was the 26th of May 1999 was when I get married, and it was my 25th wedding anniversary this year, and the 26th of May was the day after the Scottish Cup final, and I was thinking, maybe, the year I get married, it was the 2nd of May, and we had a weekend, my mate put on a kind of surprise engagement. We're just students, we just registry office midweek and invited all our pals to the pub. It wasn't a big deal, but my mate Andrew, he put on a weekend of surprise engagement party type thing for us, because we're going to his on the 2nd of May to watch. He had Sky in his flat, and we were watching Rangers playing Celtic at Parkhead, and that was the day we won the league. And then after we get married a few days later, Rangers are playing Celtic in the Scottish Cup final, and we win the treble by beating Celtic in the Scottish Cup final. I'm thinking, it's all set up. We're going to Parkhead as the season was going on, particularly in February. I'm thinking, we go to Parkhead. I didn't know that. The post-split fixtures come out, but there was a chance we could win the league at Parkhead, and then it turned out, we had Celtic in the Scottish Cup final. The day I thought maybe it's all in the stars. It didn't work, It's absolutely devastated. So on the Sunday, go to a hotel with my missus. We'd done the holiday. We went over to Nashville and all that for the big kind of anniversary celebration earlier in the year, but it worked out that the following weekend we'd already had a kind of big fancy weekend. There was a bank holiday weekend and then one day after the Scottish Cup final, so we stayed at a hotel on the Sunday night and just lovely meal and all that kind of rubbish. Nothing to do really, no money left. Just need to do something. The Saturday I think just dossed about. I can't really remember, but on the weekend between the Scottish Cup final and Scotland playing that friendly against Finland, the build up to the Euros. On the Sunday, like, what do you want to do? Let's get out the house. And I don't fancy doing. I don't want to do much. Just go for a coffee somewhere. Just jump in the motor and go for a coffee. I'll just do that. She says to me, do you want to go and see the Walter Smith statue? Do you want to go and see the Walter Smith statue? And I'm like, aye, let's do that. Because she knew that New Edmiston House, there was a coffee shop. She'd been there before. I took it one day just for a wee change, just so I could see what it was like inside New Edmiston House. Up in the upstairs bit, and we went a cappuccino and it was nice, and you could sit almost on the wee veranda overlooking a developing Piazza at that point in time. And the Walter Smith statue was something that needed to be done, and I think it's congratulations to the board for getting that done, for getting the statue of Walter up there. And I was going to the Scottish Cup final. It was lunchtime, noon, I think, on the day of the Scottish Cup final that was unveiled, and there was thousands there to watch. I couldn't do it because it was going to be too much emotion in one day for me. So I saw, technology being what it is, despite everybody else. Obviously, I can't work technology, the state of the sight and sound of these podcasts, but everybody else can. So I saw pictures coming in straight away of the Walter Smith statue, and you're always scared. Douglas Jennings was a sculptor, and you're always scared that they're going to look terrible, they're going to be a poor representation. They don't have to be a direct figurative representation of the subject. They need to, emit something of them. And straight away I could see the close-ups of the face of the statue that it captured, maybe not physically captured Walter's face, but it captured the main thing, and that was that knot that was always on Walter's brow. That noble, worried, just full of humility. That permanent look on his brow, which was always bearing the weight of being Rangers manager. This is the man who, when he's interviewed pitchside after winning 9 in a row, he's interviewed the pitchside at Tannadice by the BBC. The first thing he said was, I just didn't want to be remembered as the man who didn't win 9 in a row. And that's a Ranger. That is a Ranger. That's a Rangers great, where you know that the glory, you're going to get all the glory and you get the chance to win lots of glory, but it's not, it's a stock in trade. It's all about when you stop getting the glory. You know, Walter had that look about him all the time that is, knew he could take on any challenge, but he also knew that it was a permanent challenge. He knew all the time that the next crisis was just around the corner if he wasn't completely on it. So I think that the sculptor managed to, sorry, you think I'd been doing cocaine, but it's actually, you can hear him a bit choked up. I get hay fever and a cold at the exact same time. It's been a long, hard season. So I've been doing the wee, those little things you put up your nose. It's not the cocaine, because people who are on coke are a lot thinner than this. So I was so delighted to see that he'd captured Walter's kind of essence, really the character of the man in that. But I still was a bit worried. I'd noticed also there was, I think it's great for a sculptor. The sculptors love it to get a chance to show their skill. Was the ruffles in his shirt, because the pose that Walter is in, a very familiar pose, taking the acclaim of a crowd during a lap of honour as a manager. The suit jacket is open, and you raise your hands, and your shirt kind of bumfles down at the bottom towards the waist. But the way the way it looked in the photographs was like he'd given Walter a gut, and Walter was the fittest guy of his age ever. And I've got that on official evidence. My wife's pal, her husband is a cardiologist, a Celtic daft cardiologist, and he told me he'd been doing, this was years ago, it was a kind of insurance thing of the whole Rangers, all the players and the staff. He put them through medicals to give them, to insure them, medical insurance they were getting through Rangers. And he was brought in as the kind of medical expert to do that. And he said Walter Smith is the fittest guy he's ever come across in his age group. He was just the fittest man he'd ever studied for his age group. And I know Alan McCoy did the whole thing about how Walter was, he arrived excuse me, he arrived at Ibrox looking like Sacha Distel, and he left looking like Steve Martin. And it's a good line, and it sums up what Walter went through, the burden that it is to be Rangers manager. But it's not true, because I think Walter Smith actually got more handsome as he got. I know I am completely biased. I adored the man. Never met him. Utterly adored him, as so many of us did. But to me, he definitely got more handsome as he got older. You see him in his Dundee United days and all that. It's all teeth and hair and what have you. But I just want to make sure. I was worried that the sculptor wasn't going to quite capture that, and he's got a wee gut on him. I don't think he had. That's no fair. So I didn't. I wasn't. I knew I was going to get emotional about it one way or another. But when the wife says to you, "Do you want to go?" You take that. You go, right, okay. Park the car outside the G51, the bar, the old Rangers shop in the corner at the Copland at the Govan, and say, "Well, that's no open. That's been planned to go open for ages." Thinking that was the best. That was the worst of our problems. And then I walked past the two big cranes. They were both outside the Copland, and I'm saying, "Oh, that's where the Waynes usually wait to get the players' signatures at the end of the games." But they're doing work inside the Copland. It's the disabled, like the wheelchair section. It's going to be quite good. It's got nah. And you know what it's like. You walk along the back of the Copland. You go up the wee hill, and then it goes down a hill again towards Edmiston Drive. I wasn't what to look, because I knew it was coming over the brow of the hill. I mean, you can see it. You can see the back of the statue, and first thing that got me was everybody else had exactly the same idea. It was an endless, but not a crowd, but an endless kind of rotation of people going to get their photograph taken with the statue, going to see the statue, going to see it. Because they've all got new Edmiston House now to go in and have a coffee or buy their new Rangers strip or whatever. It's a lovely thing we've got going here. And the statue was going to make or break it, and I walked down and I looked at it from the front, and it was just gorgeous. And I'm even thinking about it, I'm getting quite emotional. I had to stop there and just take a wee minute or two, because the throat had gone a bit dry. And the guy has nailed it. Congratulations to Douglas Jennings. Now that is our quadriga. It's a gorgeous thing, and it captures Walter beautifully. And I don't even know how to describe. It's him. And it's maybe because we're Rangers supporters, we just need something to signify Walter. But I think it's also a moment where I'm not saying we'll ever be past mourning the passing of Walter Smith, but grieving that's over. Not for his family, it won't be. But for us as supporters, decency dictates we didn't know the man, we weren't related to him. We loved him, but in that distant way that you do with football people. But we got enough time has passed that it was just beautiful to see him again and enjoy him again for everything they achieved for us, and it was lovely. And if you do, as most people do, stand like what would it be, to the east of the Walter Smith statue, and you look at it with the main stand in the background, you can see Walter like side on, and then behind him is John Gregg in the John Gregg statue for the Ibrox Disaster Memorial, and then it's our beautiful Archibald Leitch red brick listed facade of our main stand, and that's your postcards, that's your picture, that's the most popular picture of Rangers until the day I die. That's it set. That's what a vista. It'll be a tattoo, as people have it as a tattoo. Walter statue, John Gregg statue, in the main stand in the background. It's just gorgeous, and it brings it home that there's a lot of kerfuffle about the seats that are behind you at that point in this little square that they've built. They've got it all paved now, and they've got these lovely seats outside New Edmiston House that are they made? What is that? I'm not very good with materials and stuff. A bit like whoever's planned the Copland Road extension. It's some sort of polished marble, polished granite or something. Is it from Ailsa Craig? Is it the stuff they used to make the stones for the curling? I don't know, but it's gorgeous. They're nice, beautiful finish. But below then they've got the names of the sponsors or the directors that were responsible for putting the money into all this New Edmiston House and the Walter statue. And I think they've called it, is it the Founding Fathers or the Gallant Pioneers? Something that, is a bit too grandiose, maybe a bit offensive to, Moses McNeil and Peter Campbell, these guys, the Gallant Pioneers. But nobody's noticing that. They deserve something, but nobody's noticing that because everybody anywhere when New Edmiston House standing outside is just looking up. They're just looking up at Walter, looking up at John Gregg, looking up at our beautiful main stand, and it's a lovely little area. We've got it's already been road tested after we won the League Cup. When you go into get your coffee, the beautiful service, lovely personal attention you get when you get your cappuccinos in up there, surrounded by bears. You don't have to worry about saying anything too loud about the football because there's Celtic fans standing behind you. You're in New Edmiston House, and you can't get your cappuccino next to that veranda now because that's the entrance to the Rangers Museum. And the lady for the Rangers Museum saw me looking, and she's like, "I'm not gonna. I want to take a whole day to do the whole proper tour. I want to get Bomber Brown to do it, but." She comes out with the clipboard and says, "Are you planning to do a tour? Are you a Rangers supporter or blah blah blah?" Just taking all the notes and that. They're pushing it. They're making sure that there's a sense of community. And yes, we are customers. It's stupid to ignore the fact that we are customers, but they know how to treat us. And if Rangers fans want to put the money into their club and make sure we're never in that position again, well then there's plenty of ways to do it. But also we have a proper home now. I remember seeing Ali Dawson there. It was a game against Hearts on a Sunday, I don't know, 8-9 years ago. And we must have already been out the league race or whatever. It wasn't a big buzz about the game. Then it started raining. It must have been live on the telly. It was on the Sunday. But it started raining. And Ali Dawson was outside on the little what is now where the corner of New Edmiston House is, where you'll go in to go to the bar. But remember, it used to be the car park of the old Edmiston House, which was kind of had horrible grill fencing, temporary fencing round about it. They would open it up as a kind of fan zone for days. Embarrassing enough, but there's Ali Dawson. He's got the youngest Rangers captain ever won the Scottish Cup. A great Rangers player, Ali Dawson, and a great guy. It's much missed. But he was standing there with the full shirt and tie, looking great, of course, looking like he'd still go out and play. And he's trying to do some anecdotes and that, talking about his career with a microphone and a speaker, and basically somebody holding a brolly over him. And people are walking away because it was peeing down, and I'm standing there totally trying to make eye contact. I just thought I was mental, probably, because you want to encourage the guy and let him know that you appreciate what he's doing. But that was he deserved better than that, and everybody, the supporters deserve better than that. Rangers people going to talk to the supporters deserve better than that, and now we have that. It's a beautiful area, and it's going to get better. And I remember sitting there thinking, well done, James Bisgrove. well done. I think by that point we knew he was on his way to the murderous regime that is Saudi Arabia, but we knew what we were getting with Bisgrove. I've talked all the time on Gers Night about how I basically hate the kind of person I hate the James Bisgroves of the world, the way they talk, the way they're completely mercenary. But it's also what we needed, because what I hate more is how Celtic, operating exactly the same way, have been allowed to lord it over us for a decade now. So I was like, yeah, let's just get them. Let's go and get them. And I think when James Bisgrove came in and went, okay, friendly against Celtic in Australia, and we all went, no. It's like, oh, too much, is it? Am I too good at making money for you? Am I too mercenary for you? That was quite good. We knew we had the right man for the job, and he's got this done. He's got he's helped obviously get New Edmiston House built, get the Walter Smith statue up there, and I was just thinking, well done. And then I found out that somebody gets sacked. I don't know if it's James Bisgrove's fault, John Bennett, whoever. Apparently somebody's been sacked. We don't know who. Maybe that's just a token gesture, because of course the Copland Road stand, the work's going on there, will not be complete until they think the end of August, but the problem is the season starts at the beginning of August. Now, the SPFL have brought out their fixtures, and people were saying, why couldn't they just wait? Why couldn't they just reverse? But we've got, I think, Motherwell at home in our second. We're away to Hearts, just next day, Murrayfield. That's where you will be going next week. We're away to Hearts, first game of the league season. I think it's at 3rd of August, and the following week we're at home to Motherwell. The following week is for the League Cup, and we could be drawn at home to somebody else in the League Cup. And then the week after that, we're at home to Ross County. And people are saying, well, why couldn't you just have us away to Motherwell and away to Ross County? We're away to Celtic at the end of that month. And that helps us out. It gives us just play fixtures away from Ibrox, and that will help us out. I think the SPFL have got to show their hand. They've got to say what they were planning to do, so they can then say, these are the favours we are doing Rangers, so it all looks above board. Also a bit of a power play, probably. And that's fair enough. Let them do that. We have mucked this up, so we are looking for favours if it comes to rearranging fixtures. The problem we've got is we will have, we're going to have 2 Champions League. Come on, we're going to have a Champions League qualifier, and we're going to have a Champions League playoff match. The home legs at Ibrox, that's where the real problems come in. You have to play them somewhere, and I don't know if the talk is of us going to Murrayfield. Then there was no chance we're going to go to Hampden because there was concerts on at Hampden, and then we're going to relay the pitch, but that could be deleted. Plus Queen's Park are playing at home at Big Hampden this season, because Lesser Hampden is still too lesser. So there was talk of us going to not being able to go to Hampden, so it'd have to be Murrayfield if we're going to play anywhere else, going to play home games anywhere else, and that's a nightmare for me. But well, there's so many Rangers fans from the East Coast, so why shouldn't they get a wee shot at having Rangers on their own doorstep? But it's just like the thing. I spent my whole life announcing how I only go to Hampden and Ibrox, and now I'm going to be forced to go to Murrayfield, or maybe I'm going to Hampden to see Rangers in Champions League. That'd be quite nice, actually. It could be quite interesting when things like this happen. It throws up interesting scenarios to have to go to different grounds. I know we're customers, and for a lot of fans it will be a logistical nightmare. You are, strictly speaking, buying your season ticket on the strength of knowing what your routine is going to be. But I'm seeing the board getting a lot of stick. People just wanting them to make a mess of something so they can slag them rotten. If you're coming from Northern Ireland and what have you, I absolutely get that. It is an absolute nightmare, but games are moved at the last minute. These games that are getting announced, the fixtures that are getting announced, are going to get switched to Sundays and what have you, because they're going to be live on television. We're going to have European games on the Thursday because they'll fall into the Europa League or something. The fixtures are always getting moved about. I think we should circle the wagons a bit as well. There's a lot of people enjoying the fact that we complained about the games at Dens Park being postponed at the last minute because of the state of the Dens Park pitch last month, and I think that had a lot to do with us collapsing on the run-in. Was the way we were mucked about continually, 2-3 occasions with cancellations at the last minute of the game at Dens Park. We were supposed to play. Look at this is a worse thing that Rangers are doing. No, it's not, because we've given you plenty of notice. We've given everybody plenty of notice that this is going to be a problem. It's not like a bit of rain at the last minute is going to end up cancelling any game played at our stadium because we haven't done any maintenance to the pitch. We're giving people notice that it's not going to be ready, so we can make alternative arrangements and not stop football getting played. And the reason we're doing this it's the best possible reasons to get our wheelchair fans off that fucking trackside where they're getting soaked and exposed to the elements and get them up into the stands where they should be. Or maybe it's their fault. Maybe we're just far too woke as a club and we need to send the wheelchair fans back to, just send them back to where they came from, wheelchair stand or wheelchair over. Because you think about it, wait a minute, think about it. I know they've been on the trackside for a few years, but see that like the 70s and all that. Remember, late 60s, early 70s, we're all standing on terraces and there's bottles getting chucked for the back of the old Rangers end. They never even made the pitch. They would crack fellow Rangers fans down the front and the back of the skull. And young Rangers supporters would go to these games, Hampden, Parkhead, Ibrox, wearing crash helmets, because they knew missiles were going to get chucked all the time, and then it's peeing down and lots of the terraces are open and exposed to the elements. And the wheelchair boys they're all in their wee blue motors. Remember the wee blue motors? They actually get to drive. I go to Ibrox or Hampden. It takes me. I've got to park, and then I've got to park like 5 miles away. It's like a half-hour walk to get to the stadium. Pissing rain, snow. Driving past in their wee blue buggies, just looking, going, get it ready. Oh, it's roasting in here, by the way. Oh, absolutely roasting in here. Oh, I better turn the heating down a bit. You enjoy your walk, and then and then they're just driving right into the stadium and parking behind the goal. So the missiles, even if they hit, they're just bouncing off the back of their motor. They're sitting having a 3-course meal, watching John Gregg winning trebles and stuff like that. If you close up, while the rest of us are getting soaked and pounded, and I think it's time they took a bit of the heat for everyone. You try to go to Ibrox, you get along Edmiston Drive, you just try to film yourself while you walk and talk at the same time to give a post-match reaction. And they're coming out the wheels right over the top of your toes and all that. As a 22 stone, 55-year-old guy who has to get the WD-40 onto my kneecaps every time I get out of my bed in the morning. There's no way I'll ever need, a rascal scooter or a wheelchair or anything. So I've had enough of them. Get them. They're causing all these problems. It's the best of reasons that we are doing what we're doing, building that little gantry at the front of the Copland Road. But it's a pain in the neck that we don't know what's happening. One thing I will say is, one of the possibilities people are talking about, and it's going to be, I guarantee you, while I'm actually putting this video out, Rangers will announce what's happening, but one of the other possibilities was just playing the games. This is just like people in the street are mooting this possibility of Rangers keeping the Copland Road shut. Now, I don't know how many season tickets we've got exactly. There's still bits of the ground that aren't season ticket. That'll all be in the Broomland. So could you get... The whole point was the Union Bears are supposed to be going into Copland this season. And I was looking forward to... There's still a few vagabond, rough singing types left in the Broomland. The Union Bears on the Copland. And that Celtic thing about... I think they picked it up at St. Pauli or something like that. Celtic, the call and response thing. Now that's that's the Baptist church. That's a Protestant thing, and they're totally. You watch Celtic, get in Glasgow, it's green and white. Glasgow, it's green, and they're singing back and forth to each other at Parkhead. No, that sounded quite good. But I thought that's out of order. That's a Protestant thing. The call and response. We did that, And the churches in the South in America and what have you. And we should be getting back on board with that. And I thought, well, we've got basically. The Union Bears official singing section is going to be the Copland this season, and we've got the people who kind of tagged on the Union Bears, all the other folk that wanted a bit of a party, they'll still be in the Broomland, and we could do. I just thought do something fancier. I just thought we should do the coffee shop scene from Heat, the 1995 Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, L.A. crime saga. 7 years in Folsom. 3 in the hole. McNeil before that. McNeil as rough as they say. You figuring of becoming a penologist. You're looking to go back. I worked some cruise. Guys just looking to fuck up, get busted back. That you must have worked some dipshit cruise. I worked all kinds. It's just you see me, doing thrill seeker at liquor store hold ups where I want to lose tattoo on my chest. No, I do not. Right, I am never going back. Well then, don't. I was just hoping we could do something a bit better, and I'd printed off the script for everybody in a bit of A4 paper, and I was going to hand it out outside Ibrox. But never mind, it's not going to happen now. It's not going to happen for the first month of the season. But in 1971-72, Rangers played Celtic 3 times at Ibrox in the space of a month. Because Celtic were getting the main stand rebuilt, they were getting the current main stand that they have at Parkhead was getting built. Then Celtic played, famously played Leeds United, the biggest crowd ever for a European fixture, European club competition, was Celtic against Leeds at Hampden in 1970 European Cup semi-final. Celtic would play bigger games at Hampden, get a bigger crowd, and 71-72 season, the season we won the Cup Winners' Cup, started off the old League Cup sectional games, and we had Celtic in our League Cup group, and you played them home and away, but Parkhead wasn't available, so Celtic said, can we use Ibrox as a home stadium for our home fixture? And then we go to Ibrox for the away fixture, and then we in the league fixtures, the first league game was September, then we played Celtic at home at Ibrox in the league. They won all 3 games. So Celtic, the season that Rangers won their only European trophy, started with us losing 3 times to Celtic, all at Ibrox, in the space of a month. So I don't know, maybe there's a good sign when Rangers have got to move. We've got to move things about. 78-79 season, the work had started on completely rebuilding the 3 sides of Ibrox, and we played twice at Hampden. Both Celtic home games were at Hampden. Remember the programmes? Do you remember them? Back to front, but we drew one and won the other, and ended up losing the league really narrowly that season, so just win the treble. But it's been done before. Teams move to different locations. They just work their way around it. It's a pain in the arse. They have mucked up these things that should be in situ when they say they're going to be in situ. But playing at Murrayfield as well, I actually, coincidentally, I missed it. I would have gone, I don't do away games as I say, but I would have gone to Murrayfield when we played them. Pedro Caixinha had just been sacked, Graham Murty come back in, and we played Hearts at Murrayfield because Tynecastle was getting a new main stand. 2017, I think it was. We beat them 3-1. Kenny Miller, Josh Windus, and it just looked great. But coincidentally, I was getting my kitchen and bathroom done. We were selling our house, and we had guys in ripping at the kitchen and bathroom. They'd been doing it all week. I actually stayed in a hotel the night before that game, and I was going to do the clearing up and what have you after them on the Saturday, so I just had to sit and watch it on the telly. But I wish I'd been there. I've been to Murrayfield before to watch Hearts playing in the old UEFA Cup group stages, because we're playing Schalke 04, Schalke 04 and Ferencváros. I've got an anal retentive thing about seeing European finalist clubs, and I'd never seen the two of them before, so Murrayfield wasn't going to fit. The Jambos weren't going to fill that. I wanted to go to Murrayfield, but I never wanted to go and see rugby union for political reasons, so that was my chance to go and to be in Murrayfield, and I've been there, but to go there with Rangers would have been quite a thing. Looks like I'm going to get a chance to do it again, maybe. And if we're going to keep the work going on, if we're going to shut down just the Copland and play the games at Ibrox and maybe try and squeeze everybody in, work going on in the stadium. Well, we had work going on in the stadium where we beat Aberdeen in 1991 to win the league. Remember Walter's kind of crowning moment when he first really announced himself as Rangers manager? Aberdeen just needed a draw. We needed to win it. There was no roof. There was no roof in the main stand that day because we were building the club deck. 1996, 8 in a row, Gaza scores a hat-trick against Aberdeen at Ibrox. You've got the work going on in the corners. The Jumbotrons were getting put in the extra seats to fill in the corners between the Govan and the end stand. So if there's work going on, but things will go well. It reminds me of happy times if there's work going on in the stadium while Rangers are playing there. But it's not the greatest thing. But David Murray, remember David Murray? David Murray, when he got that big old, he got the roof, he got the club deck and the big crane in from Japan, the world's biggest ever crane, and it was the world's biggest ever single span bit of metal that was there to hang up the club deck. That stuff got done. Remember David Murray International Metals, and he did the whole thing about it. Was a big part of his story. He got some cheap steel, not cheap, maybe the best of stuff, but the actual price of it, very, very good price he got on it because I'm a master negotiator, and he got the steel in MIM, Murray International Metals, but he'd so much stock because he'd so much metal because he was so good that he didn't have any space. He didn't have any space to stock this stuff, so he just went and said to his main rival, why don't you just let us put, because nobody's taking stuff off you, why don't you just let us put it in your place? And eventually the guy's like, aye, what the hell, on you go, do it. Just total ballsy. Maybe we should go to Celtic and just say, look, just get us Parkhead. We haven't been there for a while, so why don't we just make up for it by letting us play at Parkhead? But no, it's an absolute mess. But I hope it doesn't inconvenience. I'm no bothered, but I've got to go. I'll just work my way around it. I think we should circle the wagons a wee bit. But I know there are some people that will really inconvenience, and it's a shame for them. But it's interesting. I just think it's all part of the fun of the fair, and I will hope that we find out who it was that was actually sacked, so we've got a head on a stick, and that will make us happy as we go forward into the season. I just want to talk about the players and the new players we've got and how well Rangers are doing, and I look forward to that Nations League campaign with Scotland. Thanks for your time, folks. Are you watching?